Hey everyone, welcome to this Pilgrimage Podcast episode 2. Woohoo!
Yeah.
We're very cool, as you can tell. We definitely know what we're doing. Okay, so yeah, this is episode 2 of this pilgrimage. Hope you've checked out our first one. It's come out last week. We're hoping to do this weekly. We'll see how it goes, but for now, this is the aim. So welcome to this podcast. Super excited today to talk about the subject, the idea of adventure in the mundane. Fraser, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I think this idea of everyday life, there's Coldplay's latest album is Everyday Life. It's very good if you want to check it out.
Yep.
But this idea of that the everyday life is basically boring and we don't want to go to work. We don't want to do the chores around the house that we have to do, and there's almost this rebellion, especially in the day and age that we live, although it is easy to say that because we didn't live before. But I often find people take less pride in their work, less pride in their homes even, and I think it's important for us to realise that it doesn't need to be mundane. Everyday life and consistency doesn't need to be a bad thing. Actually, it can be a really good thing. So that's what we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of like it's coming out of an observation that we've made of the society we live in, hasn't it? You often talk to people and like you ask someone, oh, what did you do this weekend? And they're like, oh, I just did this. Or like, oh, I went there. And it's like, well, why just? Like, you've done something really cool, but we've just almost become numb sometimes to the wonder of life and to the joy you can find in simple things of just going for a drink with a friend,
Yeah, and there might be a connection between the online world that we live in and instant satisfaction, whether that's through, a few years ago we would have said fast food would have been the kind of example, but today it might be Amazon Prime. You order something and you get it the next day. We're seeing things that seem more exciting to us because of how they're portrayed on social media, but actually that doesn't mean that it was more exciting when you're actually there, and the person that you are matters, the person that you are is valuable. Absolutely. And your experience is valuable as well.
Yeah, definitely. And like social media is amazing and we love it and we use it and it's such a great tool, but it's also done a lot of damage in the sense that we're always looking for the next thing and the next thrill, and we've almost forgotten sometimes to recognize there is adventure in the really little things in life, and the things that we find almost don't matter, actually they really do. And so that's just kind of our observation and the things we've been thinking about and talking about lately. So we thought we'd record a little episode today talking about them. Hopefully it will help us as well make sense of some things and encourage us, to live this life as a pilgrimage even more. But one of the first things that we talked about when we approached this subject is that you can be content with where you're at and what life looks like at the moment, but also realize that there's so much more in life. So, Fraser, how do you kind of live this out? How do you experience it in your own life? What does it look like for you?
I think I don't get it right all the time by any stretch of the imagination, and I think actually this last year I've really been on a journey to what's the right way of describing it, to really discovering what it looks like to truly be content. I've kind of grown up I've had a bit of a funny life because I've on one level lived in a lot of different houses. I was trying to remember the other day, I think it's like 14 or 15 houses, and I'm 26 years old, so it's a fair amount.
Almost 30?
No, not almost 30. Noah has this joke where she says I'm almost 30, but I'm not. So I've lived around a little bit. I've lived in the States as well for a little while, and I've travelled quite a lot. I've had the privilege ever since I was a child of travelling to different parts of the world. I've been to most continents. I think the two I haven't been to is Australia and South America. I've never been to, Russia, that's kind of its own continent. I haven't been there either, unfortunately. Love to visit at some point,
Yeah.
maybe.
I would love to go there. It'd be cool.
I think you're a bit more keen than I am actually to go there,
Yeah, I'd
but
love to go to St. Petersburg. People would just back me up and go and comment on our latest Instagram photo. Fraser, go to St. Petersburg.
yeah, I think the more I think about it, the more I would be up for doing it.
Looks like a really cultural
Um,
city, so I think you'd enjoy it.
yeah, so yeah, I've had the privilege of being able to travel around and go to these different places and see, different parts of the world. And I've always kind of wanted to experience new things. I've always loved traveling and meeting new people, seeing new cultures, and experiencing new ways of doing things. I was trying to think before we recorded this about what is it that I like about traveling and this idea of pilgrimage so much. And I think it is that thing of seeing new ways of doing things that I find really exciting, and that there's people in different parts of the world that live completely different lives to me. And how do they live? What is it about the way that they live that's different to me? What can I learn from them? And I think that's something really exciting. So yeah, I've travelled a lot, but I've also at the same time lived for many years in the town where Noah and I now live. And over the last few years I've suffered a bit from the grass is always greener syndrome, of wanting to do what I can to try something else, to live somewhere else, do something else, which maybe you haven't gone through in quite the same way, because you kind of have done that in terms of moving to the UK from Switzerland.
Yeah.
So I've been on a bit of a process of, I remember, I mean, not so much in recent years, but before we were married and before I was in a relationship, always looking to move to different countries, to try different things, but nothing ever really materialised. But one thing I've learnt after, a few years and a bit of resistance is to be content with where I am. And I can honestly say that today I love my job, I love the town where we live, and it's nice to have the familiarity, and sometimes that is annoying at the same time. But also we both know 100% that we're meant to be here at this time in the
For
town
sure.
where we live, and
Yeah.
there's a comfort in that. And when you're in the right place at the right time, whatever difficulty you might face, there's a comfort in that. So I've been on that journey of really discovering that, and that then helps the mundane everyday part of life much more enjoyable, actually, because
Yeah.
you kind of have this security underneath everything of, yeah, I'm just getting on with my day in the place where I live, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to always think there must be better than this, there must be more. Because yes, there is always more, but I'm not going to get there by thinking in that way.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that really helped me.
Yeah, and so what you're describing here, I think, is more of it's a mindset. So it's not that you're dissatisfied with where you're at, but it's you're so grateful for what you have and where you're at, but you also believe that there's more to come, and that the best is yet to come. That's something I really often write in people's birthday cards, because I genuinely believe that is true. The best is yet to come. And one of the things I was thinking whilst you were talking, Fraser, was what makes the place you're at right now a place of contentment is also the people that you share this place with. So
Yeah, definitely.
one of the things that we are so grateful for is all the people we know here, isn't it? All the friends that we've made. Like, I've never had so many amazing friends. I have incredible friends back in Switzerland. Obviously, it's not always easy to keep in touch and to have the same depth of... Well, actually, that's not true. The depth of relationship, I'd say, never changes. But you do really miss the people that you can't see that often.
Yeah.
But it stays the same. But I've never had so many people around me that I can really rely on, trust, and enjoy life with. Like today, we were just out with some friends for lunch, and it was so good just to hang out, and the people that you can truly be yourself around, and just even argue in front of, or just be who you are, is so valuable. And I think that's a big part that I would say has helped me settle, but also want more, is
Yeah.
the people. So surrounding yourself with people that really, really, that you connect with, that your heart can connect with, is something that's important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. Yeah.
But it's not easy when that happens, because that means that, you know, adventure in the mundane is to be planted where you're at, but also to be ready to go if the time comes. And that's when it's hard with close friendships and everything, like I mentioned with Switzerland. That was really tough at first when I moved, because I'm leaving everything I know behind. But again, it doesn't mean that moving and doing something else and living an adventure doesn't mean that you're going to lose your friends. It just means that life becomes richer, because you're going to get to know more people, have new adventures, have new, experiences. But yeah, the idea of being planted and being ready.
Yeah, definitely. And being around the church that we're in, there's also a training college that's connected to it. So there's a lot of people that come and go over the years. You know, they might come to this training college. That's actually how Noah ended up coming to the UK.
Yep.
But that's probably for another podcast. But we see a lot of people coming in and being trained and then leaving, or they might come and be trained and then stay for a few years and then leave. And there's a lot of this coming and going that you see, and sometimes the bravest thing that you can do, or the most adventurous thing, is to actually stay. And
True.
it's easy to see a lot of people that come and go, and they move around to loads of different places, but they're never truly rooted or planted. But actually, I think roots is something that I've really learnt a lot about the last few years, and that being rooted and grounded into your community, into where you are, is something that is a very valuable thing often. And yeah, there's a verse that I wanted to read in Philippians where the Apostle Paul kind of sums up what we're talking about. And he says, "I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learnt the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through him who gives me strength." And that last part, Philippians 4:13, is a very famous verse. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. And that all things, I think that refers to the mundane as well, that whatever we're doing, we can do all things through him, who obviously we would say as Christians, that's Jesus for us, that's Christ, but through him who gives us strength for the everyday. Because, you might think that you need strength to go on this huge adventure and pack up and move to deepest, darkest India or China or somewhere, halfway across the world. But, maybe we need just as much help with the everyday of life as well. And if we don't recognise that, we will never think that we do need help with that thing. And that's why we end up really not liking it, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I feel like sometimes we also get the definition of adventure a bit wrong. Like I've got this journal in front of me at the moment, and it says adventure on it, and there's a picture of some trees in the background, and it just looks like this really cool trail that you could walk in the middle of the woods, maybe in like Canada or something, like a really nice place. And that's kind of our perception of adventure, something beautiful, exciting, and it is all these things. But if you actually look at the word, like I'm looking now, adventure, what I see is Advent, and Christmas wasn't very long ago. And this period of Advent is a time when the thing that we're expecting hasn't come yet, but we are waiting for that. And so I think living a life of adventure is living knowing that there are some things waiting, and living life well until you get to this place.
Yeah, that's good.
And the thing of pilgrimage as well is that you never really arrive, like you may arrive at your pilgrimage point, the thing that you were going for. But once you arrive there, all the things that you would have learned on the journey will mean that you have a next adventure coming. It's something that never ends. And yeah, so Fred, do you want to kind of talk to us about what adventure means for you, how you would describe it, live it?
Yeah, so we kind of both came up with our definitions for adventure, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I think the the way I would describe it is making brave decisions. So if you're someone who's adventurous, you're not afraid to make brave decisions. And often we would refer to that, like we've mentioned already, as making the brave decision to pack up your bags and move to another country, another culture, like you did, a few years ago. But actually, one thing that I've had to do, the brave decision, was putting aside the want to go and do something else, to see new horizons, to do whatever, and actually say, no, I'm going to be rooted here. And so, making brave decisions doesn't have to be going over where it looks better. If it looks better somewhere else, sometimes the bravest thing is to stay where you are and stay rooted where you are in the community that you're in, despite the shortcomings that are there, rather than going somewhere else where those things might not be there in the same way, but actually you're making more of a difference by staying in that place and being rooted there.
Totally. And I like the word brave because I think it communicates a lot when you think about what it means. It really takes a lot of guts, doesn't it? Like, I know it's kind of obvious, but doing something brave will actually involve a lot of different areas in your life and will affect different people in your life. And it's something that not loads of people do. I feel like, I don't know, I might be wrong, I don't know what you think, but sometimes in our time and society, I don't know, I feel like there's not acts of bravery that we see every day. And it's a shame because we all have the capability of doing that and of choosing to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think an example of what I would term as a brave decision, although it might not seem like a huge thing that we've made recently, is with the car. So we had a really nice car that we really liked, good old Skoda.
It was called Monty.
Yeah, it was called Monty. Shout out to Richard and Jay who named it.
Yeah.
They're trying to come up with a name for this new car, which I'll talk about now. So we had this really good car. We had it for 3 years, and we had managed to pay it off, so we owned it outright. And, for people our age, in our 20s, that's a good position to be in. But obviously we are both musicians, so we need space for all of our gear. And as we're starting this project, we want to have more space to be able to hopefully do some live things at some point as well. And being in the church that we're in, we travel to different congregations doing music stuff as well. And eventually, not yet, but we want to start a family. And so for me, a brave decision was making the decision, actually, we're going to upgrade. We're going to trade in the car while it's still worth a certain amount of money, and we're going to get this new car. And I'm the kind of person where it's a big step to make a decision like that. And I know that other people will look at that decision and think, why have they done that? But I'm the kind of person where I care about what other people think, and that I wouldn't say that's in a good way either. And Noah's the kind of person where she doesn't really care about what other people think, so we balance each other out. But I had to say, I know this might not make sense to some people, but then when we do start a family, we'll be in a position where we've got this car and it's paid off and we have it,
Yeah.
So that's what I would, that's my kind of practical example of why my definition is for adventure is that way. And, that car is another testament of us being rooted here. We wouldn't have got that car if we were thinking we're going to leave, in a couple of months or even a couple of years. So I guess that situation, the process of thinking that I've been going on the last year or so has definitely played into my definition of adventure. And if I was to, or we were to be moving somewhere, maybe I'll be saying something else. But I think because of what we're thinking and talking about, I'm saying what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally. And it kind of ties in with what I would describe as my definition of adventure. I would say that adventure is agreeing to being disturbed. And it's like, when I say this, to be honest, it kind of challenges me just as much as saying it, just as much as it's a challenging statement. It's a really cool concept to be adventurous and blah, blah, blah. But when reality hits and you've got things that disturb you, how are you going to react and how are you going to cope with it? And I definitely don't always cope well. Like, I am a bit of a creature of habit, and I do love spontaneity, and I love a good, you know, a good spontaneous trip somewhere or an exciting event. But I also really struggle when I've had my plan and then someone comes in and disturbs me. But actually, I've
Mm.
realized this is really what it means to
Mm.
live an adventurous life, because you're not
Mm.
just so stuck in your mundane thing. You're not so stuck in your own ways that you don't let things happen.
Yeah.
And you learn so much, to be honest, even when it's annoying and
Yeah.
it's tough. You really learn. Like, I remember when I was looking at going to uni, I really wanted to study in London, and everything was looking like all the odds were against us, weren't they? It's
Yeah.
just
Definitely.
there was no way I could go to London because of different reasons, grades and places and whatever. And that just, it disturbed me, and it pushed me to push back when I would have probably kind of given up and said, oh, it's just not going to happen. And I probably would have had like a little pity party. But thankfully, like, Fraser just kind of was like, no, we're not, if that's not what you want, we're not going to settle for that. So we just made that decision. We prayed about it, to be honest. And I ended up going to London because that thing that disturbed me pushed me to really pursue what I wanted, and
Yeah.
I got it. And that's a nice, inspiring example. But sometimes it's in the good things of life that stuff come up and disturb us, and you have to go out of your way.
Mm.
And I think that is living bravely and
Yeah.
adventurously.
And I love that definition because it works both ways. It works being
Definitely.
disturbed in your nice little comfortable life in the community that you love and being willing to pack up and go, like the example for whatever reason I've been using a lot in this episode. But it also means being disturbed from the dreams that you have. Say you have a dream to be do a certain career, but then you have a child and you have to put that career on hold. That is adventurous. You're agreeing to being disturbed to
Totally.
raise that child in the best way, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that definition, it works both ways. And another thing that I was going to say was around the thing of often it to me you can be adventurous where you are and what you're doing already because of your mindset. So, for example, it's easy to be adventurous when you're going to a new place and you're doing a new thing. When you're going to the new job and it's your first day, you want to present the best version of you that you can to your new colleagues and things like that. But there's something about allowing yourself to be disturbed when it's your 1000th shift at that place, to actually go in and say, I'm going to make this atmosphere better when I leave it. And that comes into our next point, which is that adventure ultimately for both of us is actually not living to please yourself, but living to please others.
Yeah.
We believe that true happiness is found, in that pursuit of, not the pursuit necessarily of happiness just for yourself, but the pursuit of happiness for other people. And I think that we've both learnt a lot through the process of gearing our lives around being focused on other people, and we live in a way where every Friday night we give up our Friday nights to go and we run a local youth club, and doing things like that, they're really good because they kill your pride
Yeah.
and they
Totally.
kill your selfishness, because you have to turn up. And a lot of these guys in the youth club, they actually rely on us, and
Yeah.
I don't mean to be arrogant to say that, but we've
We just feel the sense of responsibility.
yeah, exactly. And one last point that I want to make is, agreeing to being disturbed, that whole idea, and living for other people. I think being adventurous is not being so busy that you can't take time out to help someone.
Yeah.
Not we as Christians, we would use the story of the Good Samaritan, not passing by that person that's been beaten up on the side of the road. Whether that's physically, like in this parable, or whether it's emotionally. We walk past so many people every day in our lives, whether that's at work, whether it's literally on the street, whether it's at school or college, whatever we're doing, and they need us. They need who we are. They need what we have inside of us. and so we should be willing to be disturbed
Yeah.
for those things, I think, as well.
Absolutely. And it's something that Fraser said in the last episode, the first episode. He said that the motto that he's kind of had for the last few years is to live life for something that outlasts it. And really, if you think about this, you can't live life like this without living for others and living with others, because it's the people around us that will carry the legacy that we have, you know. And a couple of months ago, Fraser lost his granddad, and it was, you know, it's a really difficult time to walk through. But at the same time, when you look back on someone's life, it's amazing how inspiring it is, and how it makes you want to be the best that you can be, to honor the memory of the people that have gone before us, but also to carry what they carried. And I think that's something you really felt, wasn't it? This sense of you're carrying the legacy that your granddad started and left. But it's not done. It's not just been left to do nothing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think legacy was the big word that I was thinking about during that process of grieving the loss and just being with my family in that time. Legacy is something that is so important, and especially younger people, often we don't think about legacy very much, but living life for other people and putting something in place that is your legacy that you will leave behind, I think that's so important. And it is one of the things that has pushed us to do this whole project, is we want to leave a legacy behind, and we want to communicate some of the things that we've learned and that we will learn as we learn them. We want these songs, these podcasts, these videos, whatever it is that we do, to be a legacy that we can leave behind for people coming after.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, in all of this, excuse me, in all of this, living to leave a legacy and living to carry the legacy of someone makes life really exciting. And it makes the everyday not mundane at all. And even in the mundane things of life, you can find so much fulfillment and joy and excitement. And that's something we just wanted to communicate today, that even if life is mundane sometimes, you make the life that you want by the decisions you make, by the way you live, and by the wisdom you have, and by the people that you serve and the people that you live with. And there's this quote by Tolkien that I love. As we record this podcast, you'll probably get to know my love for Tolkien. But he said this thing, or he wrote it down: "It is no bad thing to celebrate a simple life." And I totally agree with it. I think this quote really combines two really good words: celebration and simple. Celebrate and simple. Because we make life a bit too complicated sometimes. We compare too much. We want too much sometimes. But actually, when we come back to the roots and to simplicity, and to the simplicity of friendships, and of having food together, and of enjoying what a beautiful landscape, or enjoying what we have, there is so much celebration in that. It will just automatically bring that out of you, won't it? So that's kind of what this podcast is about, that you who are listening now are making the life that you have. And, we all get tough stuff thrown at us. And I totally empathize, with some of you that might be going through really, really tough things at the moment and thinking, well, I'm not making my life what I want it to be because of all of these things. But just be encouraged that, there is more ahead of you, and that you can make decisions today through the really, really tough stuff that will see you through the next step, and the good stuff that are ahead. This pilgrimage that you're on is going to have highs and lows. But if you're in a low, it means that there's a high coming. And sorry, this sounds a bit cheesy, but honestly, this is the truth of life. We all live it. We know what it's like.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the last thing I would just add is kind of bringing it right back to the everyday again, is in the office where I work, my boss is a guy called Dave Hellier, who is, kind of like he's a legend. Shout out to Dave. he loves a guy called Jordan Peterson. I do as well. I actually got his book for Noah for Christmas. So.
Yeah, starting to read it tomorrow.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a selfish present because I want to read it as well. But I think she'll enjoy it as well. But he says how your schedule is your friend, and so we've got this quote on our wall in our office to kind of remind us of that what we're doing that day. It doesn't need to be something that is controlling us and that is our highest priority doesn't need to be the latest thing that we have just decided to put on our list. We can design the day that we like to have. Now, obviously, for some of us, I'm privileged to work in an environment where I am allowed to do that, and I there's trust from my manager to be able to kind of plan out what I want to do and to be able to do that. I know that not everyone might be necessarily in that position, but I think that there's a lot of truth in that our schedule can be our friend, and we can learn a lot from looking at successful people and how they do things, and actually how they planned the way to get there. With us, with this project, although we're still at the beginning stages, we've been living with this for
almost 2 years.
Yeah, almost 2 years now, where we first had the idea. But that might seem like a long time, but we've had to put things in place to be able to do that. We've had to buy the microphones that we're talking into, the stand that the microphone is stood on. All of these things, it takes time.
The mundane things.
Yeah, it takes time, it takes money, but if you invest in something that you really care about, it will pay off. And I think that's an important thing to think about and to realise as well.
Absolutely. So to wrap this up, what would be the 3 main things that you'd like to give away to people from this episode? On the spot.
You put me on the spot. Yeah, I think that adventure is being content, but knowing that there's always more.
Yeah.
That it's good to have roots, and you can be adventurous in where you are in the everyday life, the everyday mundane life. And I'd say the most important thing is that true adventure is found when you live for other people, that you gear your life, you base your life, you center your life around living to make other people happy. And I think you'll find a true sense of adventure, because people, like your definition, will always disturb you, but also a true fulfillment in that as well.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. That's really good. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. Really, really appreciate you guys just giving time to listen to this. We hope that you get inspired from this podcast and that you have something to just chew over for the next week until the next one hopefully comes out. Thank you so much. Go and follow us on social media. We're on Instagram @thispilgrimage, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.